Shut up and sit down.
Initially reading this book with greater expectations, I found this book a bit of a disappointment. The author, Dillon, offered a list of pedantic situations and analysed each one separately rather than providing a holistic look at office politics. Ultimately, while reading through, I had to do my own analysis of what office politics is and apply it to the list of examples. For example, she should have started out with the definition of what the author thought was office politics and how these list of separate situations related to one another, and some sort of guide to help the reader determine which situation best matched the one they're in. So to start off this review, I'll try defining what I think office politics is. There are a number of different viewpoints, so first we'll look at what the Webster Dictionary defines it as: the activities, attitudes and behaviours that are used to get or keep power or take advantage of within a business or company. Personally, I think this definition is too broad and loose-ended and almost requires you to know what activities they're referring to from your own personal experiences, but I think it's a fair starting point. If we dig a little deeper and look at another author's viewpoints of office politics, such as Michael and Deborah Dawson's, they define it as the information and sometimes emotion-driven process of allocating limited resources and working out goals, decisions and actions in an environment of people with different and competing interests and personalities. But I'd say that definition is more a self-interested one, defined by a frequent user of office politics, as it lacks the underminedness of what I think we'd all accept is a part of it. For example, would flipping a coin to allocate limited resources be considered office politics, even though it is a process that would fit Dawson's definition? Maybe we can apply the duck test to the definition of office politics and look at the Management Study Guide list of reasons why people engage in office politics. Employees aspiring to come into the limelight easily, without much hard work and dependent on politics. Politics arise when employees aspire to achieve something beyond their authority and control in a short time. Lack of supervision and control in the workplace, too much gossip in the workplace, arrogant and incompetent supervisors, or jealous colleagues. I think this list is a good start, although I'd add a couple more to the list. I think in my own personal experiences, there are just selfish and lazy people out there who want everyone else to do everything their own way, or want the other people to do their job, or just for no other reason want everyone else to submit to their own position. In short, I would define office politics as the undermined actions people engage in to achieve a desired result that they would otherwise don't have the authority or ability to achieve directly. With that definition, we'll now come back to the HBR guide and look at Karen's stated aim in her introduction for what the readers are likely to learn from reading this book. That is to build relations with difficult people, gain allies and influence others. And hence maybe this book isn't about a guide of office politics, but advice for surviving office politics. She goes on to say that all workplaces are political and some 95% of respondents felt affected by manipulation and hidden agendas. She also claims that those who try to stay completely out of the political affray are less likely to meet their job and career goals. This guide is broken up into three main challenges. First is with your boss, second is with your colleagues, and lastly is with your organisation. There is an additional section entitled Building Your Skills, which is designed to give the reader some good general workplace advice. Going through each challenge, I noticed that Karen would just list out a number of individual situations and offer advice in the best way to handle them. But in doing so, I felt that she failed to help the reader identify which situation best applies to the one they're in. The first chapter is about the boss who holds you back, but I would have identified the social loaf boss. For example, the boss who lacks the competency to do their own job and the management has brought you in to support them. Karen suggests that you talk to the people previously in your position and see how they did or didn't handle it. But this solution doesn't make your incompetent boss competent, and neither does it change the fact that everybody else in the organisation knows your boss is incompetent and knows that you've been hired to remedy that fact. When I look back at my own career, there are so many different bosses who had so many different motivations behind their actions. You really need to identify the beast you're dealing with. Is it the arrogant boss who thinks that they can do everything and you only need to do as you're told and subsequently surrounding themselves with incompetent yes men? Is it the social loaf boss who gets their position by kissing the right butt but now leans on others to do their job? Is it the selfish boss who knows that they'll get a bonus by reducing costs even if it means making you do the work of two? Is it the psychopathic boss who just gets off by making you know who is a boss? Is it the insecure boss who is afraid of hiring the person capable of replacing them, opening themselves up to being fired? Is it the untrusting boss who thinks that you'll do everything wrong and it's just easy if they do everything else themselves? Is it the manipulative boss whose desire for loyal canines to take a bullet when the shit hits the fan? Is it the wimpy boss whose desire to please everybody opens themselves up to manipulations by others? I think Karen really should have created a workflow diagram with key identifiers to help readers correctly identify which boss they have before applying any of her solutions. In the second section, Karen describes the challenges of dealing with the workplace colleagues, and again offers a list of specific situations and advice for dealing with each one. This section again fails to help the reader correctly identify which situation they're currently in. And coming back to my own personal experiences in the workforce, I think you really needed degree in psychology to pick up on people's motivations to correctly deduce which is the proper method for handling which situation. Karen should be pointing out some of the key phrases people use as red flags to know which situation you're currently in. For example, is your colleague hyper-competitive, or do they just feel insecure, or maybe they just don't trust you? There are any number of motivations that can cause people to act in the same way, and if you apply a solution designed for a wrong situation, then it's not likely going to work. And finally, Karen fills out a book with some good workplace life advice, which really has nothing to do with office politics, such as surviving the office social get-together or corporate downsizing. I did appreciate her advice on people's own personal perceptions for motivations behind legitimate workplace conflict, such as having different agendas or different personal perceptions or even a different personal style, even though I don't think these could be seen as a complete or exhaustive list of motivations. All in all, I think this topic really needs to be analysed by a psychologist, and more of the book needs to be targeted at identifying the root cause rather than just general advice and basic tools on how to resolve conflict. Also, having a legal background myself, the methods used by the legal system to resolve conflict in the broader society are nothing like what Karen offers in her guide. And I think if the reader already understands many of the ideas and concepts discussed by Karen through their own personal experiences, then they'll better understand what she's talking about. But if the reader is a complete noob to the office workplace environment, then they're not likely going to be able to associate much of the advice that Karen is offering. I think this guide is incomplete and requires more psychological analysis to really deal with the subject matter. Karen should really try hooking up with a trained psychologist or maybe even a lawyer and co-write a second version of this book.